I think things have gotten pretty intense now versus conventional media, where, if you have to give a print ad, you'll do months, you'll come out with a classy campaign, and then you've bought that space, you have a captive audience, so you're in control. We still have these debates that, hey, should we even advertise in print anymore? Because
as somebody from
no
print,
offense to
as
Dawn.
somebody from print, I know this is heartbreaking, but yes,
but don't you worry, I have faith in you.
I don't think of any Gen Z or Gen Alpha further down the road that are picking up the newspaper.
No,
but I'm glad that print is still relevant.
That's perfectly fine. Electronics still has its own power, but you need to remember what the bigger purpose of you as a corporate is. It is to live in harmony with the society. When you start listening to others, that's when you actually crack stories. The pressure on our young now is that their attention spans are very small. So yeah, be grounded, be rooted, and learn to listen to others first before spilling out your story.
Active listening is essential, be it a relationship, be it the corporate sector. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of All Things Money. Today my guest is Mariam Durrani. She is Director Marketing and Brands at Pakistan Cables and a veteran communications specialist. Hi Mariam, so good to have you on my show today.
Great to be here, Fatima. Thank you for having me.
So what is the scope of your activities at Pakistan Cables and how did you end up here? If you could just walk us through your journey.
My scope primarily revolves around brand building. And now, as you are aware, that when it comes to brand building, it's a pretty diversified role. It means we have to obviously focus on the external comms of the brand, but employees are an integral part, particularly in my industry as brand ambassadors itself. So internal communications itself is an area also that we leverage on from time to time when it comes to brand building. But besides brand building, I also, like I was sharing with you earlier, take care of internal comms in the company and the corporate social responsibility activities / sustainability. How I ended up here is a long story. I think I've been working now for over almost 24 years. And somehow, no, overall.
Right.
And somehow I always found myself working in the consumer durable sector of this country. I've also worked within FMCG, so I think I was very fortunate that over these years I've worked both sides, two very different product categories. I've worked in Pakistan, I've worked internationally in markets like Indonesia and Singapore, but they have always been in the ambit of brand building, market research, and communications. So coming to Pakistan Cables happened quite suddenly for me. I wrapped up a role in Singapore and I decided to come back home, and that's when they reached out to me. I started out as a consultant because I had a toddler and I wasn't sure if I was willing to give in the kind of demands that fast-paced work environment takes up. So that's how I started out with them, but then my role just kind of expanded. There was lots of exciting stuff to do here, so I've been there since then.
2.5 decades is a very long career span and so much has changed digitally. 2.5 decades ago, who knew that we TikTok and Insta and Facebook? This is even before Orkut, the predecessor to Facebook. So how have you seen the communication channels change and how have you seen the stakeholders change?
Fatma, when I was studying, our university, where I did my MBA from, had a very small internet lab. And it used to say internet lab, and there were about 6 cubicles only. And I was in my BBA. And yahoo.com was something that was new then. I'm talking about 1998. And LinkedIn had just popped in. So I think it was 1999 that we had started to find out that there's something called LinkedIn. And we were just undergrads and we were like, okay, this was going to help us find jobs. But it did not work that way in case of Pakistan, at least from the era that I'm talking about. Where I think there has been a massive shift thanks to social media platforms. When Facebook came in, I think around 2007, 2006, I think that's the time when Facebook came around. there has been a massive shift to what they started out with, when they said social media is about connections. Yeah, so I mean, before Facebook, we had Orkut. I don't know if you
I remember
if you've
Orkut.
been
I remember
around
the
that
initial,
long.
the
Well,
testimonials and
I mean,
everything.
I've been there.
Yeah.
We had Orkut first, then came Facebook, and then suddenly, we had Instagram, and then you have WhatsApp and Snapchat and whatnot. Um, I believe that if Orkut started out with we're about connecting, social media today is all about attention, attention seeking. Look at me, we're here, I'm here. And I think as a communications person, um, that gets challenging, uh, extremely challenging, because how can I, sitting in my office, figure out how to beat the other person, or how my content is going to be way better than XYZ people who are all now focusing and fighting for attention. So yeah, I think things have gotten pretty intense now, versus conventional media, where you know if you have to give a print ad, you'll do months, you'll come out with a classy campaign, and then you've bought that space, you have a captive audience, so you're in control. Social media has taken that away from us. So yeah, that's what keeps it interesting and intense also, I think, for brands. Even people now, you know, influencers who are competing for your attention, and it's definitely way more intense than before.
For sure, there are so many podcasts right now about the news, about the business, that just to stay relevant in terms of podcasts, this is a news fatigue. There's a cacophony of sounds from everywhere to stand out, and then there's like the 60 seconds of fame, and then you're forgotten again. So, in terms of the different social media platforms, which ones do you think are the most important?
Sorry, I didn't
So
understand
So
that.
there's Facebook, there's Insta. Which social media platform, or maybe it could be YouTube, it could be print, which method of communication do you think is the most important, or which are the top 3 most important for you, for your company?
Wow, within social media platforms,
Let's just say forms of communication. So
I
it can be
think
news, it can be.
it is entirely dependent on which generation of audience you're talking to. Which generation of audience matters a lot. We still have these debates that, hey, should we even advertise in print anymore? Because
As somebody from
no
print,
offense to
as
Dawn.
somebody from print, I know this is
No
heartbreaking,
offense
but
to
yes,
Dawn.
absolutely.
But don't you worry,
agree.
I have faith in you. Trust me, I have faith in you. I still love to read the Sunday Dawn. It's something, I even read all your classified ads, trust me. So
Really?
I'm that.
That's good.
that
We still
loyal.
have some, but then I think those are the boomers, millennials, Gen X that are reading it. I don't think of any Gen Z or Gen Alpha is further down the road that are picking up the newspaper.
No,
But I'm glad that print is still relevant.
That's perfectly fine. So coming back to your question, I think it is a function of which generation you want to go after. Quite honestly speaking, I mean, there is still a large population of people who are reading the newspaper, and they still get it at their homes. And if they're not getting it at their homes, they're reading it at work. Aisa nahi hai, right? So you have the government sector, you have the private sector, so that's pretty much there. Yes, print has declined significantly, and so has electronic. Electronic still has its own power, it still has its captive audience. They have intelligently shifted themselves onto digital, so has print. But I think, coming back, when we are obviously talking about the generation that was born with technology and convenience around them, then you have to use the mediums that they're using right now, which are digital technologies, which are social media platforms. And yes, as you correctly mentioned yourself, the baby boomers, the Generation Xers, the Zenennials, which are the kids born between 80 to 84. We're all still checking out the traditional platforms also. In fact, I think we're the ones who are working most hard, because we have had to stay up and respond to the evolution that has happened and hit us, and we're trying to make sense of that. We are responsible for developing the frameworks also, which the millennials or the alphas or whoever will further evolve. Yeah, I think it has to be what age bracket you're talking to. And if I were to give you an example, for example, The category that I deal with, wires and cables, my age bracket is pretty broad. It's 35 and onwards. So I have the millennials, and then I have the 55-year-old or the 60-year-old homeowners, contractors, builders, and developers who may not be very active on digital media. And so if I have to inform them about some business development, I have to use the conventional ways to reach out to them, which makes my job double the, the effort versus you just place an ad in print and, oh, we got the best billboard in the city, so everybody knows I've launched a biscuit. Get it? So yeah, it's a good channel mix is now something which is a need, and I think would be a demand of any media person, media manager or media comms or brands person, to figure that out by the segment.
Absolutely, channel mix is so important, whether you're which segment of society that you're trying to reach out to. And in that case, I mean, I know that Pakistan Cables has this huge urban forest project going on. So, in the past, sustainability and climate change, 2 decades ago, sustainability and climate change were not buzzwords, they were not trending words, and that has changed so much. What the kind of responsibility consumers, clients require from the corporate sector, the kind of responsibility they require, has a lot of sustainability initiatives. So in that, how do you communicate with the audience that this is not greenwashing, we're actually doing this? What are the challenges there?
I think I have to commend some key people over here within the company, primarily our director and former CEO, Kamal Chinoy, who came up with the idea. And the thing is that I see it. I know that sustainability is, is pretty much talked about. It's a key word. But I think that acts like these require a level of bravery and courage, because you're a corporate, and at the end of the day, whatever you do, you have to justify, what would be the impact of it on the profitability, right? And these things, at least in Pakistan, are not heard of as much, right? When we were setting up our new factory at Nooriabad a few years ago, there were conversations on new plant, designs, this is what's going to happen, etc. And we were sitting in that meeting, and there was a piece of land which was empty, and like anyone who's setting up a plant, massive investment, would say, we're going to hold on to that for future expansions, right? But here, we somehow ended up into a conversation of what to do with this free area. How can we use it for a bigger purpose? That's how it started. And then he came back a few weeks later and he announced that we're going to build an urban forest. And I had no idea what an urban forest was at the time. And the urban forest actually turned out to be the very first thing that we did on that piece of land before even construction started, because the vision was that there should be some trees already when the people come to work here, So I think what I at least learned from this was intent. What is the intention with which you're starting a project like this, right? I know for a fact that a lot of corporates wrote to us once we announced it. Plantations were completed, we announced it, and they said, we want to come and learn how did you do it, what are the dynamics, and if we can do it or not. We welcome them. And then in Nooriabad itself, we have heard of companies who are actually adopting it too, which is a great thing, that you're able to do something that inspires other people, and then culminate for a good cause. So why I call it an act of bravery is because, it is a cost. It is taking up land when it's about making hard business decisions. One does say, why did we actually need to invest in this, right? But you need to remember what the bigger purpose of you as a corporate is. It is to live in harmony with the society, right? You are serving them, and again, they're contributing towards you. So to your question, when you talk about climate change or sustainability aspects of around a business altogether, like I was speaking to somebody earlier also, I think it's common sense. We may lose each other in the technical jargon of it, which is fine. But it's really common sense. If you want to survive on this land, in this planet, then you need to take care of it.
Yes, obviously we
Right.
need sustainability initiatives for the earth to survive. But how do you communicate with your audience that you are doing it? Because there's net zero implications, there are carbon credit implications, and then obviously there's just the brand that we are a green brand.
There are technical certifications that are required, obviously. So, and for example, when we deal with institutional clients who assess our credibility, they do seek out certifications, not just manufacturing certifications, but for instance, we have the ISO environmental standard compliance also going on with us, right? So they do seek out, and that is what the mandate is of sustainability now as well, which is hitting Pakistani listed companies in a year's time, that you need to conform to these standards and then start reporting them. With my company, we haven't per se started reporting them per the standard, which is going to be now rolled out. But every time we have been working on, I mean, we have been doing things like this way before it even became part of the sustainability. So my annual report would have it, which is the public doc. In case of urban forest, because it is something that we invite even, representatives of the public to come and visit. We have hosted a lot of students, and we want students of environmental studies to come and see the place and then do their projects. We're more than happy to welcome them. So we have deployed those activities for, again, particular segment. When it's shareholders, it's the annual report, it's those press releases, digital and print. When it's student community, because we do work with them, we invite them for visits. And then plus again, we leverage the social media platform because we know that the younger audience is there and they follow us. So yeah, again, going by the audience and the platform that's suiting them.
So in your career, can you give just an example of a success story of a communication strategy, some disaster that you mitigated, or something that did not pan out very well? For example, the PIA ad that they had to issue an apology for, in which the plane is hitting the Eiffel Tower. So that is just a bad marketing campaign, a bad communication strategy. Can you think of an example, either a good one or a bad one, that comes to your mind?
Before Pakistan Cables, I was working for Philip Morris, which is a cigarette brand manufacturer, right? Great company to work with, and I was working on one of the local brands, which was Morvan Gold. That was a cash and cow of the company, right? And largest selling brands, so there always used to be a lot of pressure on that job. So I had also worked in Indonesia. So if you're familiar with the Indonesian market, you would know that they are known for what they call kretek cigarettes. Their cigarettes have clove in them alongside tobacco. It's a huge market, okay? The normal regular cigarette is actually very small there. So we did some research, we did some testing, and we decided that we're going to launch a hybrid version of a kretek in Pakistan, because Pakistanis understand clove. We have clove, and the kind of smoker that we had for Morvan Gold itself, seemed to kind of overlap, whatever our research was showing. The team worked very hard on developing that product, the packaging. I mean, you can imagine, right, the amount of work that went into the options, whatnot. And then we launched it in key cities, as far as I remember, in key cities. Now you need to understand, and maybe you won't understand the significance of it, because in Indonesia, which is an extra large market of cigarettes in Asia, kretek is a given and it's a successful thing. And with my regional and global teams looking at Pakistan, and everybody gung-ho and super confident that, yeah, and why had we not figured it out? And this is gonna be it. Obviously we did have some concerns, like any young aspiring brand team. We did have concerns that whether it's gonna fly off or whatever, but at the same time we said clove is something that everybody is familiar with and it should not take them. And we thought that we were the geniuses who have figured it out, that, how come nobody has launched kretek in Pakistan till now and we will be the first ones. And the smokers rejected it. The market said, no, thank you. and the kind of feedback that we got. I mean, it's been many years, so I think I can easily share that with you too. The kind of feedback that they got was that they just absolutely said that this is an herb that we use in cooking. Why would we want to smoke out of it? And because people over here, well, clove, as the benefit of clove itself is that, you know, it's a warm herb, right? So they said that why would we want to, you know, smoke a cigarette that has a warm tone in it?
Yes.
You know, we are smoking for XYZ reasons and we don't want to feel that thing. Whereas we were coming from a completely different planet, and our research was showing us that this is a acceptable product concept for Pakistan. I think that for us was a huge wake-up call, and it was a classic, I think it was a classic blunder where sometimes global brands or global companies think they know the market better because proven successes. So this is going to fly and we're telling you, and you know, we're the critic experts, and it just didn't. We had to roll the product back. I remember the pawn shops, because those were our channels of sales, right? Happily gave back. They liked the pack. Pack design to a smoker is of significance, by the way. They liked the pack, but they did not like what was inside. Thankfully, I must say, thankfully, another learning for me there was that the loyals that we had for that brand did not judge me.
So you did not lose the Marvin Gold customers.
At that time, there used to be a really bad fight between Marvin Gold and Gold Flake. Gold Flake was a brand of BAT, and Marvin Gold was the segment leader at the time. So it used to be neck to neck, okay? And BAT was the market leader. PMI had become number 2, but Marvin Gold was still leading. So for us, the major issue was that my smoker or my loyal is going to think that crappy brand, what are they taking out, and I'm going to hop on to this one, more dignified. But my loyal was so loyal to me that he didn't judge me, which kind of reinstated my faith that they accept us even when we make mistakes.
As long as there are no cloves in the cigarettes.
Which is huge, I'm not sure if you will find such loyals now. In the cigarette category, you do find loyals because, you know, they're used to their particular cigarette. But again, I've seen a lot of switching in that category too. But for us, I think as a brand team, that was a huge relief that we were not judged on it.
Yeah.
You know?
So you had your smokers still smoking Marvin Gold. It's a brilliant story of failure. I mean, and yeah, from the external perspective, I can imagine that you would think that it would work. But I've never heard of a clove cigarette before. So
you need to go to Indonesia in order to understand. It's huge.
Great. So if there was somebody new coming in the market, a new communication person, say you are at IBA, at the communication class, what would you give? What is the one advice you would give them?
Be grounded and
not listen to external stakeholders that much.
You see, the problem is, and I'll tell you, Fatima, because I see it. When we start working in the communications roles or areas, the approach becomes, we know better. We'll tell you. And we stop, because what's the role of communications? It's two-way. It's two-way. So if today you and I, we're talking, we're having a conversation, you have to, unfortunately for you, but you have to make an effort to listen to me, right? To keep the conversation going. That's what communication really is. What happens is that even when you're speaking on behalf of a brand, you tend to say, this is my story, and I'm here to tell you my story, and da, right? Anyone who's coming out of school, they really need to first learn how to listen to others. When you start listening to others, that's when you actually crack stories. It is not going to come to you because you have a communications degree and yeah, sure, you have worked with XYZ company, brand, you've done your bit, but I think a good communication professional has that skill rooted in them, that they listen to others and then they start, you know, very recently I was just listening to this talk, and you know this famous quote that says, I think, therefore I am. You know, the full quote actually is, I doubt, I think,
I doubt, therefore I
am.
think, therefore I am.
I am. We have taken away the I doubt bit, okay, and generally, because for the longest time I had also heard the same thing till I just heard that feed, and I was like, oh, whoa. The doubt part comes when you start allowing somebody else also, and then opening yourself to listen to the other person, and then you carve a story out of it. And that's what I would say. And you know, any fresh grad, like I said, social media is all about attention. The pressure on our young now is that their attention spans are very small. That's
I think
where
it's just, I read some just you have like 3 seconds or maybe less before a teenage girl is just going to swipe to the next one.
so hard. It's, I mean, you have kids, I have kids, I can see that it is so hard to captivate their attention, right? And uspe se I tell them, you need to learn to listen to others. That you need a kind of patience to listen to the other person, right? Especially once you start working in a company and you're like, I'm the corporate, I'm telling you, this is my story. It has to be, what's their story there? What am I going to say? Are we connecting? And then you can figure out how you need to get the attention. So yeah, be grounded, be rooted, and learn to listen to others first before spilling out your story. That's what I would think. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I think for any sector, not just communication, but perhaps it is more important for communications. Active listening is essential, be it a relationship, be it the corporate sector. Thank you so much for coming on my show, Mariam. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It was a great honor to be here. Thank you very much.